Welcome to Work the Way, a podcast from Mixed Church about following Jesus, learning to live the way of Jesus. We're doing the deep dive in bite size.
Love it.
So our hope here with the podcast is to take some of the stuff we don't have time for on Sundays and blow it out, go into the deep dive of all of it. So some of these things that we're going to spend whole episodes on might be like passing points on a Sunday, or even stuff that gets left on the cutting room floor. I mean, you know, both of us, as we prepare to preach, there's like so much stuff. We're like, oh man, yeah. Absolutely. And so what we wanted to do is say, you know, rather than just kind of continually leaving that stuff on the cutting room floor, let's pick it up.
That's good. Play
Play with it and kind of say, here's all the stuff that we're thinking and all that stuff. So what we're going to do with these is for each set of sessions, we're going to have one big question, right? And then we're going to break that down into bite-sized pieces and parts. So the first one we have here that we're going to be talking about is I'm calling it the process.
Got it.
So we're looking at a deep dive into the way we become more like Jesus. And the thing that got me thinking about all this was like, man, we got so often we think about we go to church on Sunday and we get a little nugget, and so then we try to like do that nugget, and then we go get another nugget. We listen to this podcast, or we have a conversation with friends. We got all these like little nuggets, but there's no like cohesive what's actually happening here. If we're not planning, if we don't have a system or at least an idea of what it's going to be like for us to live like Jesus, we'll never walk down that road. So hopefully we're just going to put some context together for all this.
Yeah, totally. Love it. First off, I'm super excited about this.
Yeah.
I think it's needed. I think people have a desire to follow Jesus, and it's huge to be able to see it in somebody else. It's huge to be able to hear it from somebody else, and to know that it's possible, to know that like there's other people on this road with me, that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Although the way is hard, and the way, and like those who are on it are few, it's good to just know that there are some people on it and like head in the same direction. And so I think this is awesome. I love how you kind of framed it with just like picking up some stuff off the cutting floor, because you're right. There's so much you want to say on a Sunday, and you want to say what you're saying on a Sunday in a way that like is going to be packaged nicely and people can take it
and
take it with them. Yep,
yeah.
absolutely. And you can't just put everything in there.
Yeah.
Jesus didn't do that when he preached, right?
Yeah,
When he taught, he didn't just take everything that he knew and put it into one sermon or one little message. And so I think this is huge. Obviously, working the way, that's what it's all about. And like you said, it's a process. It's not something that I think you had kind of mentioned to me a couple of days ago. It's not like a lightning strike and all of a sudden everything has changed and we're automatically like Jesus the moment that we say yes to him. It's just we began this journey of walking with him. And now it's like, okay, what does each step look like?
More and more.
More and more.
Yeah.
I wanted to just kind of almost frame it too, just with Jesus' own words. He's the one who said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life, right? No one comes to the Father except through me. So what we're talking about a way to the Father. We're talking about a way to glory. We're talking about a way to eternal life. And the only way we come to that, the only way we get there is through Jesus, is through the life that he lived. Not through a confession or a statement of faith. Not through just like, adhering to certain doctrines. It's through walking with him. It's through embracing his life. And so this thing that we're talking about is so much more than just praying a prayer on a Sunday. It's about a brand new life that we get to put on in every single day. It's like you and I, we wake up in the morning and we put on our clothes. That's what the Apostle Paul is talking about when he's saying, put off the old and put on the new. It's like putting on a garment, something that people are going to see around you. I'm really excited to dive into this. I think it's going to be awesome.
Deep dive. So the big question is, what is the process of a lifelong commitment of becoming like Jesus? How should we frame all of that? So we've got different small questions. So the first one is this, and so every week we're just going to start, or every session we're going to start with a simple question. So the question here is, what are we trying to do? And so, and if you go across the literature and the stuff that's happening as far as Christianity is concerned, and you go through this church and that one, you walk into maybe any given church on any given Sunday, I don't know that it's immediately obvious what it is we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
And which is interesting and maybe kind of telling. I remember I had a conversation with my father-in-law after we had been pastoring for a few years, and he hadn't been a Christian for a real long time, and he looked at me, he's like, I just don't really know why we're there.
Sure.
And I was like, it was so telling, because like so often we go there, we do the thing, and we just kind of know it's because we should or whatever. And then even that's just real local, at like, what are we doing on a Sunday? But let's blow that open and say like, well, what are we even doing at all? Right? So if Christianity is we just have to believe in Jesus and then someday we'll go to heaven, what happens in the meantime there has no meaning.
Yeah,
no matter how
absolutely.
much meaning you try to import, you're playing a trick on yourself.
Totally.
You're lying to yourself a little.
Complete
that,
void.
like,
Yep.
Right? That like, well, I'm going to live like everybody else, and then when I die, I go to good place because I said this, and then when they die, they go to bad place because they didn't agree to that. But that's not the picture that we get out of the scriptures,
Absolutely.
although that might be the picture you get from our churches.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think like as you read through like the New Testament, things that Jesus talked about, things that the Apostle Paul talks about, the heavy emphasis is on our life right now.
Yes.
And like what does knowing Jesus, what does knowing God, how does that translate into our life right now?
Yeah.
What does it look like to put on the new self? What does it look like to walk in love?
Yeah.
What does it look like to love our enemies?
Yep.
Like heaven is awesome, but it is a byproduct of like walking this way.
And there's like
right?
surprisingly little, like for the emphasis we put on that,
Completely
there's
agree.
surprisingly little about what heaven is or is going to be like or whatever. Like, that's just like, that seems to not be the point of the Bible.
No doubt.
But we've kind of made it the point of our faith.
Yep, absolutely.
And you know, I mean, I remember from when I was very first exposure to Christianity, whatever, people talking about fire insurance Christians and stuff. And it's just this thing that makes a ton of sense. And it's like, but as much as we talk about it, we still sort of live that way.
Yep, no doubt.
Wanting to move past that, what are we doing here?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think when you preach a message, and like the message that is coming across is that it's all about getting to heaven, it leaves fruitless lives in its wake. Like people who don't understand.
Oh, hot take. Like for real, but true.
Yes.
But also like, that rocks the boat. Some.
Yep, no doubt.
That's not what I think
Jesus was
most people
after.
would expect a pastor to say.
Yep, no doubt.
Right?
For sure. Jesus was not after decisions. He was after disciples, right?
Yes.
He came to make disciples.
Yes.
And that means like day one, when you say yes to Jesus being your teacher, you begin to walk after him.
Yeah.
You begin to become like him. When a student is walking after a teacher, he becomes like him.
Yep.
The way that he thinks,
Yep.
the way that he talks, the way that he acts,
Yep.
the way that he loves. And certainly we have the best teacher in Jesus.
One of the cool things, I don't remember where I heard this. It might have been John Mark Comer or something like that. There was a common blessing in Jesus' time as a student would go to follow a rabbi, which is like a very high honored thing. So to be so for a rabbi to come up to see you and say, "Hey, follow me,"
Sure.
they're asking you to like take on what they would call their yoke, which is like live
It's
like I
huge,
live,
yeah.
all that kind of stuff. And the blessing that the family would give then to the young man that was going to follow is, may you be covered in the dust of your rabbi's sandals.
Love it.
And so the idea, the word picture there is, they don't have nice roads like we have in Milwaukee or whatever, or nice sidewalks.
Right.
But they do have, so they just had all these dirt roads. And so if you walked right behind your rabbi, the idea is that you're following so closely that the dirt he's kicking up on his sandals is covering you.
Love it.
Which is a very different picture than
What we've been sold that Christianity is.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so the concept behind fruitlessness there is that's not like a necessary outcome of that kind of thing, but it's that we're thinking about the whole thing wrong.
Yep.
And maybe not on purpose, for sure not on purpose, and for sure we're not, like, because when we say, we need you to, we do the thing, raise your hands, like, come to Jesus, that whole thing. But what we're not doing when we say that is, then you're finished. We're saying that's the start of a life. Because Jesus said to the disciples, hey, follow me.
Yep.
He said the same thing to Nicodemus, who didn't. He said the same thing to the rich young ruler who walked away sad.
Yep.
And so he's constantly making this invitation, and we have to do something with that invitation.
You bet.
But he doesn't say decide to believe what I believe. He says, follow me. The invitation to Christianity is to follow me.
Absolutely, no doubt. Just the way that you're talking about, be covered in his dust, walking so closely to him. The very next chapter, the one that I referenced earlier, John 14, he's the way, the truth, and the life. The next chapter, he's talking about living a fruitful life. And what's interesting to me is that all throughout Jesus' ministry, he had told his followers to follow him, right? Yeah. He had said, follow me, follow me, follow me. Yeah. All of a sudden, the night before he dies, he almost changes tune, and he says, abide in me. What I find interesting and why I think it relates to what you're talking about with like being in the dust of the rabbis, we can follow at a distance, we can't abide at one. He never intended for people to just follow at a distance where the dust wasn't settling on them. Yeah. And yet there are so many people who are in churches today that are following at a distance, right? They're in the door. Yep. They've said yes to the right things, but their life hasn't been transformed. Right. And this life is not about just a confession, like we were talking about before. It's about the transformation of our life. Yep. And that comes through not just following Jesus, but following him closely, and not just following him closely, but abiding in him, where he is in us and we are in him. We are now one with him. And that's what he, like, it's almost like a parting shot. This is like the night before he dies, you know, like you think about yourself on your deathbed one day, like, what are you going to share with like those who are closest to you? You're not, talking about some like nothingness, right? If was LeBron better than Jordan, right? You're talking about something that's important to you, the thing that's heaviest. And I think that's what Jesus was doing there. Yeah. He's saying, I've been saying, follow me. And I love that you're following me. And I love that that's like the starting place. Yeah. I want it to translate into abiding, where you remain continually in me. You find a home in me. That's what abiding kind of means.
Abode.
Yep.
It sounds the same. It probably means the same thing.
Probably.
So you talk about fruitlessness and fruitless lives and stuff. And I think one of the big criticisms that get leveled against Christianity is like, well, you're all just the same as everyone else. Sure. Or this doesn't work. This doesn't change anything. Yep. Dallas Willard I think it was the Great Omission. He's kind of dealing with that. He said, look, if you put a gallon of water in your gas tank, it's not going to work because it's not running right. Sure. Nothing wrong with the engine or anything. Yep. You're just not feeding the right things. You're not doing your part to make sure that thing runs correctly. Right. And we make the gospel, Jesus himself makes incredible promises about what life with him looks like. Often that isn't reflected in the life of people who are claiming to follow Jesus. And so then in that space, that gap between, is where a lot of doubt and cynicism starts to grow. Oh, it's all hype. Oh, it's not real. Oh, all roads lead to the same place, because we're kind of approaching this religion as any other one. But that's, I think, the total upside downness is like,
you bet,
from personal experience in my own life, from watching you and your family and the countless people we've watched take seriously the command to follow me, to take up your cross and follow me, or is what we see is this fruit that is like all of those promises, life and life abundantly, joy in crazy seasons, all that stuff is actually coming to pass, because and not just in ways that's sort of like hyped up and we trick ourselves into it, but it's like an abiding, deep sense of all the things, the fruit of the Spirit that Jesus has promised us, but that doesn't come as we often think, in some order. So really all we're doing, we boil it down to brass tacks, when we say, what are we trying to do, is this. We're trying to be a better disciple of Jesus.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
All of Christianity, the whole thing, went from Sundays to worship, we're just trying to know him better, to do what he did, to see how he sees, to love like he loves, all that stuff. We just want to be that one. And so I'll finish with a quote from Willard as we wrap up.
Love it.
This is all that is needed for us to change things, whether in the church or in the world, is sustained apprenticeship to Jesus. All the things we see wrong.
That's what it's all about.
All the things we see wrong. All it's going to take is for individual sustained apprenticeship to Jesus.
Yeah. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, bro.